Hello, everybody. It is January 29th, about 5 o'clock at night. Thought I would do a journal reading, so I will just get into it. Gotta figure out which one comes first or second. This one's for 12, 12, 13. Okay. No, not that one. Okay. So it's June 12th of 2024. So Wolf, one of my parts that was trained to be a dog and was locked in a cage and all sorts of ugly business. Wolf just showed me an image. It was of a duck with its bill in the water. She could see the duck and the reflection together. She was running in the forest and Rocky hid in a bush to rest. Rocky's my other part. She kept staring at the duck and its reflection and how beautiful it was. It was sunrise. She was tired, thirsty, and hungry. Suddenly, a hand reached in and pulled her out by the ankle. She was quite startled. She got scratched up. Rocky says that's what she gets for not paying attention. Wolf was just mesmerized by the duck and the reflection on the sunrise. It was so beautiful. She wanted to be there forever. She was dragged back into reality. It was one of the other children hiding. She had pulled her out to let her know the hunters were nearby and they had to move on. Claire, who's a clairvoyant part of me, stood for a moment, sensing which way to go. Then she led the way. Slick, another part that was trained on obstacle courses, weaved through the forest in silence with her friend. They killed her friend in the end. She is so very sad about that. Katie was her name. They were the same, they could see. No one had gotten as far as they had. Perhaps they could escape. Quietly and quickly they moved. Slick and Wolf are best friends. Claire and Rocky helped too. Excuse me. Wolf was hit in the back of the head with a baton when they finally caught her. She woke up in her cage listening to Sarge talk about how clever the two of them were. Katie was in her cage with blood all over her face. We were both pretending to be knocked out still, but I could tell. Katie had her small finger bent up. That was our signal to each other. Sarge was talking about using us to hunt instead of to be hunted. Dad was there listening to Jack and Sarge plan. Now, Jack is my CIA handler, and the Sarge I reference here is the woman that was in charge of School Sisters of Notre Dame. Um, and I actually should, at the time, I thought her name was Sarge, but it's actually Sister Mary John, who is a transvestite in nun drag. And so, behind her back, we called her Mr. Mary John. Anyhow, so Dad was there listening to Jack and Sarge plan. They gave Dad the SRA box. We had very nearly gotten away. They could not allow that. That's when they changed our training. They took 12 of us to the edge of a forest, told us to run, and then fired rifles in the air. It startled me. I ran. Katie was next to me. The others scattered. Claire says, it wasn't as easy to use my radar when I was running, but I did my best. Katie was using her radar too. We weaved in and out of the trees and bushes. It was sunset. Then the dogs came after us. We went through the water and then got up high until they passed by. We waited until it was clear. Running and running and running all night long. We could see the way to freedom. There's a peaceful old man in a cabin miles away. We could hide and get food in his root cellar. We just had to get there. We were halfway, in and out of the water, up trees and back down. The others were nowhere in sight. We were hopeful and excited. Almost there, we could no longer hear the men or dogs, but still so far to go. In class, we both saw the same cellar. We both showed each other in our heads. We planned for this night because we got to have clothes and shoes. It was early fall, no snow yet. We could do it. In class one time, we showed each other the pinky swear. So that was our sign. Half each of the pinky swear. No one ever knew. As we crossed the fence to the other side of the compound, suddenly a high-pitched sound knocked us to our knees. We had our hands over our ears and could still hear it. It hurt so bad. We were crawling now, but they found us and knocked us out. That's when we woke up back at the compound, training camp, listening to them plan. How did they know? We didn't touch the fence. We both saw a squirrel go across on trees, so we did too. There's no way we tripped the fence. We were tortured until we talked. They made us choose which should die because we could not be together anymore. Katie got defiant and spit on Sarge. She was shot in the head in front of me. The dogs tore her apart. I screamed, no, 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 no. I was hit in the head with a baton again. I woke up at home. I was sullen for a long time. Mom couldn't get me to cheer up. She was confused, and I couldn't tell her. Katie and I became friends in our minds. We played on swings. We laughed and laughed on the swings. Katie's dad wanted money. That's why she was there. We were friends for only a few weeks, but it felt like forever. I think God sent her to me because I was so sad I wanted to die. Then she came and everything was better. I had a friend to play swings with and talk to. She was my best friend forever. God sent her to show me hope. I didn't want to die after I knew her. That's what I was thinking about looking at the duck and his reflection, that was us. I'm s- Again, it's funny because I could have read or typed this out or moved it 1,000 times and not cry, but sharing it with you guys, it just comes back. So that's June 12th of 24. And this is also June 12th of 24. I woke up having only about 6 hours of sleep. I didn't feel too bad. It was 8 a.m. and Chris was still here. He was getting ready for work and I helped him. After he left, I decided to go grocery shopping. I did not have any cigarettes all morning. I had ordered a sandwich and I was waiting for it. As I sat there, I thought I would look through my notes from last night. The instant I thought that, one of the door alarms went off and it startled me. I thought it was a sign from God to not do it then, but I looked anyway. I read through 2 paragraphs and instantly wanted to cry, so I stopped and put it away. I came home with the groceries, put most of them away. I sat down and ate my sandwich. I thought I would come outside and have a cigarette now and then go back and pack up the meat. As soon as I took a drag off the cigarette, memories came. Katerina wants to tell me her story. Kitten, Kevin, Sailor, Jonathan, and Finnegan, which are my 2 sex slaves and 3 assassins, walked into that castle. It was Katerina, Knight, and Bullet that walked out. Splits off of them. When we first entered the castle, Katerina was led to a room and was undressed. A dog collar was placed on her with a very short chain, maybe 18 inches long. Then she was led into a room with 3 mistresses in black robes. Their hair was hanging down in front of their hoods. They were all in robes with masks on. That's where a goat raped Katerina anally first. It was smallish and its hooves were in the center of my back and on my shoulders moving around. Then they had one placed in my mouth, then in my vagina. Once I was raped thrice by the beast, they were taken to the next girl. Then a man in a robe anally raped me. As he did, he defecated. One of the women collected his shit. They placed it in a ceremonial bowl and held it for him as I was on my hands and knees. He dipped his hands in the feces and rubbed it on my back. He made horns from the small of my back up my spine, swooping across my shoulders. I had been marked with the beast's horns. After that, I was flipped over and raped vaginally. Again, the feces was taken and rubbed from my vagina all the way up over my breast to my shoulders. Marks of horns. It's like Imagine this on the back as well. It was like this. This was to mark that I had been raped by the beast in the front and the back. Then more feces was rubbed from my chin to my nose, up and over my eyebrows to my temples. Another mark of horns. That's why that's why I had feces in my nose. These men were marking the territory of their god. And that was, I believe I mentioned that in a previous journal entry that, you know, I had gone like this one night just to, wipe something out of my nose and had the pea-sized piece of feces come out of my nose. It's like God was expelling it. I was made to stand there with the leash now connected to a hook on the wall as I was mildly choked. The wall had hooks at different levels vertically. We were made to stand on our toes and then they hooked us. Should we stand on our feet, we would be choked. So we stood there on our tiptoes chained to the wall. I watched the other girls and boys, women and men be treated the same. This is the mark of the sex slave who had been raped by the beast. They also came through and took the feces on their fingers, had us open our mouths, and they wiped their fingers on our tongues. Animal urine was also poured over the top of our heads. There were several of us, 13 comes to mind, and we were made to stand chained to the wall until the feces dried. That same man raped us. I believe it was the same man that was the leader in the circle where the swords and guns were pointed at me. He then proceeded to urinate on all of us. There were 5 men doing this. Once we were covered in urine and were marked with feces, then we were unhooked from the wall. I believe this was the man, the minion of their god, who is marking its territory. We were led by chains out into the orgy rooms. People just came up and took the chain and did as they wanted with us. We were raped in every orifice, sometimes 2 and 3 men at a time. They would rotate. These 5 men symbolized the center, meaning the sun and the 4 directions. The 3 women made it, quote, 8 worlds, they called it. After we had been raped thrice by the beast, 13 men who represented the center and the 12 directions, then we were properly initiated. That's when we were triggered to become killers. We were led to another room and armed, each of us on a chain with a master that took us to different rooms throughout the castle. There were children being raped in these rooms. They also had different marks of feces on their back. This indicated if they were expendable or not. My master would point to a child and give the sign to either slice the throat, which was the hand moving left to right across the neck, or chopping motion sideways to indicate decapitation, or chopping motion up and down to indicate disembowelment. In each room, I followed the orders of my master. Knight went into 12 different rooms and was made to kill 12 different children after they were raped. It was after that Knight was led to the final room, the circle room with the pillars. He was led to the center of the circle, standing on top of the black sun. He was placed in the center. And I guess when I get done with this, I'll show you all the images I found. That's when Bullet was born and ceremoniously intimidated to be silent. As she stood looking at the black robes, each had a finger to their mouth to indicate silence. The leader stood 12 to 18 inches taller than the rest. He walked around me, counterclockwise, with his incense and incantations, calling and talking to his god. When he was finished, he gave a signal, and the 12 swords came up. When they were finished, they looked to him, and he gave another signal. They retreated, and the men with guns came up. When they were finished, he gave a signal, and they retreated. Then each person from each direction came up, and as they did, I had to face them in that direction. They gave their threat and retreated. It was north, south, east, west, and then northeast, southeast, etc. And then northwest, southwest, etc. I had to keep turning and spinning around. When they were finished, the leader came back up to me and faced me with his finger to his lips, indicating silence. That's when he kicked me in the knee. I fell to my hands and knees and had to lick his feet clean. and then out to the driver back to the barracks. Just as I'm finishing this, I coughed up a huge piece of phlegm. I decided to package up the meat and wash off the strawberries later. I don't want to somehow put the energy of these memories onto the food we will be eating. I will wait until I'm in a more clear state of mind. Plus, I'm suddenly very tired. Going to try and take a nap. I also noticed and took a picture of a sore on my knee. This is the exact spot where he kicked me. 2 days ago it was mildly red. Yesterday it was very red. And last night it was scabbing. I had done nothing. This is the mark that came from that kick. It's like God wants it to move up and out of my body. It's also the same knee where skin is peeling all around and off my knee. It's about 2 inches away from the knee now. I keep thinking it will stop, but it doesn't. It keeps advancing and moving. It occurred to me the amount of violence I had seen on just this one night and the quantity of people raped and killed. That's just one person in one night. I got to thinking about all these people in black robes and how many different nights and how many different people killed worldwide and all of the violence. And then multiply that by millions around the world. It's staggering. All I can say is thank God for God. No wonder he would wipe out entire cities at a time. I also decided that I will not launch my channel until I have 10 of my own unique videos prepared. And those videos will only be done spontaneously when the parts all feel ready and feel good about it. So whatever day or date that happens is when I will launch my channel. It does not necessarily have to be on the 4th of July. I feel good about that. I had been feeling a little pressure to get them done quickly to be ready in 3 weeks, but this seems more reasonable. Last night, Katerina and Knight and Bullet joined the parts puddle. They stood off to the side, but they were in the room with us, and today they are walking around the house, checking it out, perfectly happy to go back to the castle. Last night, Katerina and Knight took off their armor as well. Bullet let me cuddle her. Katerina for a moment. Knight was not ready. I'm laying here relaxing and I feel like I'm having menstrual cramps. I've been in menopause for many years now, so that does not make any sense. So it must be symptoms of memories. So just as some notes from this, you'll see the sketches that I've done and actually the images of the castle that I was in. It was Himmler's castle in Germany on my session tomorrow. And Katerina Knight and Bullet's sketches. And I realized that these menstrual cramps that I was having on this night were body memories of being raped by an animal and also men that were large. And that's why there was pain there. So, let me see, was there anything else? Yeah, okay. So that's that journal entry. Let that close out and open up the next one. The 13th of June 24. It's morning at about 6:30 a.m. Chris is off to work. He had a pretty good night's sleep, no dreams. When I woke up, I wanted to wake up this time, so that's refreshing. I sat down and entered Wolf's experience into PowerPoint, the entry I just read you. I kept thinking no more cigarettes and telling all the parts no cigarettes, yet it was still there. The difference now is Siggy, my part that smokes, I have many, doesn't feel the anxiety in my stomach. I think it's more habit now, but we shall see. So time passes on that day. I came out to sit down and have a cigarette in the garden in the shade. Correction, I thought it was to sit in the shade, but it's where Knight first gave me his experience. He likes to sit here, except now he's wearing a turtleneck and blue jeans and cowboy boots. His back is to the fence and he can see both lines of entry to the back of the house. He feels good here. Knight, Katerina, and Bullet do not feel guilty or shame at all. They said that Jon told the others that they were made to do that. But Katerina piped up and said, no, we were adults then. And I piped in and said, no, you were still made to do it because you were conditioned to do it. Plus, you were trapped in a castle with no way out, surrounded by hundreds of threats. And that made them feel better. That's when I realized this is Knight's seat. When I was laying in bed, I kept thinking he was off to my right, sitting in the chair in the corner of the room on guard. He says, yes, at night I am. But in the day, this is where I will sit. He's still watching for threats. Although his back is to the fence, a threat could still come that way, but he will hear it. So this is Knight's spot, and he likes to smoke too. I feel peaceful, and I also feel hopeful. I'm drinking tea, and Knight says tea is fine. I like the little bit of sugar. He says he's used to harder things, but tea is fine. Knight is the part that could take shots. One time in Germany, I went to a bar and had a shot of tequila. Knight really liked that. It woke him up. He had 12 shots in 1 hour that night of tequila. Then he stumbled back to the barracks and passed out. Knight is telling me that he is the one who stands face to face with Chris. Knight can face him down. He's kind of chuckling because Chris does back down. I decided to wear, he decided to wear he says I decided to wear cowboy boots because that's what Chris wears. He's roaring with laughter. He's the one that grabs his balls and lets Chris know that he will win. He is roaring and roaring with laughter. Now, Rocky just piped in to tell me that he is the one that refuses to let Chris know about the locks on the bedroom door. When Chris gets over the edge, I go into my room and lock it now. For many years, there was no lock on the door, and Chris would not let me rest until he passed out. We were hyper-vigilant then. We never went to sleep until Chris was snoring. That's when Finnegan and Jonathan got a knife and stood over him and had a chat with him, and they are roaring with laughter too. Now, Smarty Pants and Deco, that's my smarty pants and decorating part, told me to buy new door handles with locks for the entire house, so I did. When Chris has too much to drink, he wants to come in and hassle me when I'm trying to sleep. I put rest here, but it's sleep. He can't get in now because of the lock. Rocky is just roaring with laughter because all Chris would have to do is look at it and see it has that little slot on there, and he could open it at any time. But for 3 years, Chris has never figured it out. Rocky is just roaring with laughter. They are all roaring with laughter, and they all feel safe and happy here. Last night in our parts puddle, we decided to drop a bomb from an aircraft and blow up the castle. Nothing less would do, says Knight. Now, our parts puddle is just at the end of the night. Parts puddle comes from the phrase, my mother-in-law used to watch a show called Safari Live, and it's where you go on the back of a Jeep, and it's a YouTube show, and you go on a safari in a camera. And when the lions would get together and go to sleep at night, the safari guides would call it a parts puddle. So when me and my parts lay down to go to sleep at night, I call it a parts puddle. So that's where that comes from. It also occurred to me that most, if not all of them, were naked. Oh, my parts. When I realized that, I told them, well, of course, pick something out to wear, anything at all in the world, and put it on. Bullet wanted to wear my robe. That's when it dawned on me I have a black robe, and she freaked out. I said, well, then you put on a white robe. So she did. It's a lovely plush white robe, and it's fuzzy and cuddly and warm, and she loves it. Last year, I bought myself house dresses to wear. They're much cooler and more comfortable. I've never been one for dresses but for the first time in my life, I am enjoying the house dresses. I realize now that it is the girl parts that wanted them. All of the girls like being a girl. I don't feel resistant to memories anymore. I don't feel like there might be a missing part anymore. Now it's just a matter of fleshing out all their experiences and recording them. They say that night Katerina and Bullet had the worst, so their stories will not be so upsetting or so deeply buried. I've been waiting to fill in the details. Now they can. They wanted to get all the nasty stuff out of the way first. Knight also told me last night that he still wants a weapon, that the bayonet that Chris has is dull. I pointed out to him that Chris has a super sharp machete right near the bayonet. He says he can make do with that. So the machete belongs to Knight. That's what he will use on Ted. He fights for Katerina and Bullet as well. but they will have their turn on Ted as they need to. I was just sitting here quietly for about a minute and all of a sudden a thump to my right. Knight spun in the chair and his head, my knight spun the chair and his head around. He's looking for the threat. Something silver had fallen on the ground. We got up to look at it, and it's a bunch of nails. It fell right at the base of the shed. The shed was put in 3 years ago. There's no way it could have stuck up there for that long. Where did this come from? As you look at it from the top, it's shaped like a fish. I realize that Knight will be ever vigilant. He will never retire. And oh my, a fish. That's the symbol for Jesus. It's a sign from God. I'm laughing and crying at the same time. I'm going to leave it there and see what Chris says. And this just indicates a pause in the evening between memories. Just finished clean. Oh, this is during the day. Just finished cleaning the house and off to the bank to deposit Chris' check. Driving to the bank, Wolf felt great. She is smaller than the rest and likes it that way. She is so happy and peaceful. When the clerk asked how my day was, she said, "Excellent. I feel light." Get back home. As I was cleaning, I realized that there is a part inside of me that likes to sabotage, but nothing too terrible. For example, the rebels want to start vacuuming on one side of the house instead of the other. So I let them do it, to discover that it screws other things up. Also, that Dad wants things to be just so meticulous and perfect. When I was 16, I remember stressing out over my underwear drawer not being perfect. Well, he was not there to inspect it anymore. My parents divorced when I was 11. I remember being relieved. At that point, I decided to allow myself one drawer to be messy and chose my underwear drawer. As I had an apartment, I always allowed myself one messy little drawer or space per room. Organizer, my part, runs into it and straightens it up after it gets to the point it irritates her. But I allow the rebels to have the messiness. There is a part called clean. Clean is the part that cleans. She was born when our father, which is what Mom used to say when she came to check on us, used to come and inspect our room as children. I was about 5. He used to come in with a white glove and check the tops of the doors for dirt and the baseboards for dirt. He opened our drawers and made sure our clothing was folded just right, that our shirts all faced the same way in the closet, and our underwear had to be folded in a certain way, just like the military does to this day. So I figured it out quick because Owie, a part that my dad used to pinch and poke, didn't want to be tortured because I did badly, cleaned badly. I learned faster than Angie and Mary. They used to get mad because I didn't let go. They used to get mad because Dad let me go because my AO, area of operation, was in order, was perfect. And so they would have to stay in there, finish cleaning, and redo their stuff. I can see their faces, foreheads tight and angry, and Angie would glare at me. Angie still does that to this day. Clean has been around for a long, long time. Clean also helped Mom clean around the house and keep things in order so that Dad wouldn't get mad. She told me that it was a great help to her. She gave me a big hug and a kiss, and then she patted my butt and said, "Go play now." This is when I got to stay home from school because I was sick from Dad the night before or just sick from any of the stuff. Sick would feel better and Clean would come out, so Clean jumped in and helped Mom. Owie did not want Mom to get in trouble from Dad, so Owie would get Clean to go help. Owie would see Dad pinching Mom or grabbing her arm and twisting it because the house wasn't the way he wanted it. Owie did not want Mom to have to go through what she did. Mom did not clean the kitchen properly once. She had forgotten to dust the light fixture over the table. Kitchen table. Dad told her that she could take a lesson from me because my area was always perfect. How could a 5-year-old do a better job than a grown woman? He said. I think he took the broom handle and smashed the light fixture. There was glass all over and Mom got cut. We were shooed out of the house. Dad left. Marianne, that's our neighbor, came over to help Mom. Marianne was outraged and told Mom that told Mom that he, Dad, was a piece of shit. I remember after Mom divorced Dad, she was a maid in a hotel. One time I got to go with her and I helped her clean the rooms. The management staff there had a very specific way things had to be done, and Mom was showing me. She said I did a good job when we left that day. She hugged me in that room we worked on. It made her work easier that day. I think I only got to go with her once or twice. I felt very proud that I could help her. Now more time passes during the day. I've also figured out what Moneymaker does. Yes, Moneymaker went to work and earned money, and she is relieved not to have to earn it anymore. Moneymaker's main job now is figuring out how to manage money. How do you get out of debt? How do you use debt? How to pay the bills on time, get the check into the bank. She takes care of all that. It occurred to me that as I'm doing the bill, she's very efficient and has made it very easy to do. But there's one thing that she always forgets, and that's to print out the bank statements. Now that they don't come in the mail, she doesn't think about it. I told her that she needs to work with paper, my other part called paper, works so that when she's working on the bill, she remembers to open those up and save them. So I'm getting my parts to work together. Paper handles all the paperwork and administrative duties and phone calls. Everything is kept in order because she works with organizer. And all of them develop their skills from teacher's pet, which was the school person who went to school. They all have very good collaboration. Paper didn't understand in kindergarten what the big deal was. Then teacher's pet told her that she would have to learn because it's part of their work. Throughout my life, her skills have evolved and she uses the computer to deal with all of that paperwork. So that was one day. And then this is later the same day. I think it's at night. Yeah, PM. Clean was just recalling the time Dad smashed the light in the kitchen. So I'm remembering little parts of it in the morning, and by the evening, the pieces are filling in. We ran in from playing in the backyard. Clean reached down to help Mom clean it up because Mom was bleeding. There was blood all over the place. She told Angie to take us outside. Angie said she didn't want to leave Mom. Clean was very freaked out. She had never seen Mom bleed, and that was a lot of blood. Mom had a towel around her hand, and you could tell she wasn't herself. She was in shock or dazed, bent over on her knees. Dad was still ranting to clean it up now. Mom just looked up at him in disbelief. I started to yell, "Don't die, Mama, don't die." Mom was up now, bent over and wavering, and said to Angie weakly, "Angie, get Mary Ann." That's our neighbor. Angie yelled at Mary to go get Mary Ann. Mary was in shock and pale too. Angie had to shake her. Mary finally ran and brought Mary Ann. Mary Ann pushed us outside. She said, "No one's going to die. Calm down. No one's going to die." She was gentle. Then she helped Mom, took her to the hospital, and all the while cussing out Dad. I was still crying outside. Angie sat pale with her arm over my shoulders on the picnic table. I asked if she was going to die. Mary was next to us staring in space. Angie said, "I don't know." In the aftermath of it all, Mom did not talk about it. She was injured and bandaged, but she didn't talk about it. Dad swept up the mess while they were gone and the big blood spots. He was muttering about not going to jail. Mom had the remaining blood splatter to clean the next day. It was on the ceilings and nooks and crannies around the room. I also recall a time that my dad was drunk and yelling and opened up the pantry door and took the canned goods and smashed them on the floor. We were in bed listening to the thuds. We got up to look. Angie was in front of us in the hallway looking. Me and Mary were behind her. We were all very scared. There were smashed cans and the contents splattered all over the place. Mom kept hollering us for us to get back in our room and close the door. Mom was on her hands and knees cleaning up food in sharp, split open cans. Dad was ranting and raving. I keep thinking about the force that it takes to split open a can. And months later, I called my sister and talked to her about it. She said, "Oh no, he didn't smash it. He opened him up with a can opener first and then smashed him," as though that made it better somehow. I said I can relate to Mom. Chris can get very mad as well. Chris did something very similar early on in our relationship before we were married. At another time, he also chipped up the malachite obelisks I had on the back of the toilet. I glued them together and moved the display, but they were never the same. It irked me for 19 years that he did that. And then, just several months ago, God had me smash them anyway. Because they're obelisks. A pagan symbol. It's the Ashtaroth pole. And then time passes that night. I heard Chris on and beating on Ted on and off for about 10 or 15 minutes. I kept wanting to go out there, but I didn't because I didn't want to interrupt his flow. Eventually I did because I knew he was using his bare hands. And he was. I went out there to see his bruised hand. I showed him where the gloves were and told him to put them on. He made me get gloves, so he should wear them as well. He put them on and I walked away so he could have privacy again. I went back out there, and of course, they were not on. He wanted me to show him how I hit Ted. He said, just 3 times. I think I did about 15 blows, because I always take the opportunity. He said that he would train me. He asked me about why the machete was out there, and I told him that I was using it with the sleeve on. He was relieved. He said he didn't want Ted cut up. I said, no way. I told him about Night, not the details, but just that there was a part called Night and that he uses the machete. I actually showed him. And then Knight sat and watched Chris work on Ted. He was leaning back in the chair with his hands behind his head. He approved. Mrs. was very proud that this was her man. Chris had some very powerful blows with his hands, with nunchucks, with a bat, with rubber knives. He even choked the guy out, meaning Ted, and broke his neck. Knight approved. Knight took Dixie out to pee. Dixie took him to the gate, which I had forgotten to lock earlier in the day. So Knight kept telling Dixie, good girl for showing me. And then time passes. We have to tell John the story about Wolf and Chris. How Chris has the wolf picture in the living room where he sleeps, which I totally forgot about. Chris played some Indian flute music and it was called Wolf Instinct. She was very validated. She agreed with everything he said about having to be calm before a fight. Chris and I both beat on Ted alternating. He critiqued what I was doing because it wasn't efficient. I said I had to release the rage. He said he knows, but that I could do it better. So who knows? Then he showed me some Mike Tyson boxing moves. Some more time goes by in the night. My inner left foot has been itching all day as well. No bug bite, just itching. Wolf was made to sleep outside at night alone with just undies and a tank top. Her feet were filthy and scratched up with bug bites. Rub, another part that scratches, tore open the skin, scratching. She found the nook of a tree trunk filled with leaves and buried herself in there. She kept getting bit up by bugs. She was warm, but she was warm enough. It was early fall in Wisconsin. She was very, very scared all night long. She wanted Mama. She cried. She slept a little bit. She was hungry and thirsty. Lonnie, a lonely girl part, Sadie, sad girl part, and Wolf alternated through the night. Trip was pissed off but kept quiet. He wanted to yell and shout but couldn't. They heard a wolf or a coyote. The girls were scared, so he decided to howl and not yell so as not get noticed. Dog showed him. Dog is another part. Over and over. And then Spirit called out to God to help us. They stood watch over us all night. At least no dogs or men were chasing her. Wolf is the one who gets and stays dirty. Wolf was allowed to go back to camp once the sun rose. She limped her way back. Her foot was scratched open and raw. For me scratching it. She had to walk on the side of her foot. Even though she had passed the test, she was told she had failed. She took too long from her foot torn open. She did not get to eat or drink. More time passes that night. Wolf is saying, once we got back home, I remember Mom and Dad arguing. Mom wanted to know what the hell he was doing with us. It did not look like any camping that she knew of. That Diana looked like hell warmed over. Angie and Mary were not in much better shape. Dad gaslighted her again, saying he doesn't know what she's talking about. They had been with her the whole time. What the hell did she do? And then he just walked off down into the basement. Mom fed us and cleaned me up and put me to bed. It was daytime. Angie and Mary went to sleep right away. I lay there for a long time full of adrenaline listening to Mom and Dad argue. I had school the next day. Mom was pissed. Rightly so. Michael, another part, was outraged. He's righteous indignation. And Sadie, the sad girl, kept him quiet. More time passes this night. Germany showed me the shower after she was at the castle. Oh, this is in the barracks in the army at the age of 20. She was in the shower room naked and alone looking in the mirror at her back. Only one mirror, one wall mirror, so she had to keep craning her neck. Corky, my other part, who is a cult loyal part who likes to lie and deceive me, kept telling her not to go out drinking like that anymore. So rather than let any part remember that we were just raped and tortured and went through SRA abuse at Himmler's castle, I had a part in there saying, "Oh no, you went out drinking and got wasted, and that's why that's there." So, um, there's my journal entry. Like I said, I guess, I'm not sure how long I've been going, not too long. So let me see if I can get to the session. The Himmler's Castle pictures. Okay, so I will share the images of Himmler's Castle and such. You'll see it again tomorrow during the session. But let me see, Germany. Here is Himmler's Castle triangle with these circle, cylindrical items on the side. Here is a look at the interior there. These doors, you see it's a very distinctive door pattern. Again, more, I believe this stuff was added for tourism. In the summer, there's actually flowers here. Um, Let me see. Another side view to one of those doors. And then this guy, you turn around and leave this, you go through a doorway. Over here is a barracks that they made for the SS soldiers. And this is where my clothes were. And they took me in here and put me in a shower and hosed me down with cold water. And it was like a fire hose. It had very high pressure and it hurt because they couldn't send me back to the barracks covered in feces and urine and blood. They had to at least wash me down, and I put my clothes back on and was taken back to the barracks. So there's that. This is what the basement room looks like in that large cylindrical area. This has an eternal flame burning here with these creepy pictures. I should just go online. Let me do that and show you the images look much better than these. Himmler's Castle. Um, where's the one with the flame? Anyway, this is the black sunroom where I was taken, and it has these pillars all around it. Um, like right here, 12 pillars around 12 windows, either windows or doors. This is what it looks like when tourists visit, all nice and lovely. Um, let me see. Usually there's a picture here with this. You can see these creepy pictures. I mean, look at them. Gosh darn it, you can't make this bigger. But just take a look real close to the, let me see if I can pull this out, make the, okay. But look at these pictures surrounding them. Probably 12 of them around the room, or 13, probably. Here's some more of the creepy pictures. Um, I mean, just ghouls and goblins and creepiness. Um, let's see if we can find one with the eternal flame burning. I think they call it the eternal flame. And there, there's a small replica of the castle itself. Um, let's see. Eternal flame. No, they've removed it. It was here months ago. I wish I had taken a snip of it. But anyway, yeah, in this room here, John was telling me that he has a client that was abused in this room and that there's a flame that always burns here. And it's interesting because in this view, there's no pictures, but in this view, there is. So obviously they take them up and put them down. Um, I guess that's all I need to tell you about Himmler's castle. Oh, here, look at the symbology. This is a satellite view. Images may be subject to copyright, but these were his expansion plans, and you can see the geometric shapes and forms. He was very much into the occult and using symbology. And yeah. So I don't think all that ever got expanded, but they were certainly in the process. And Himmler himself, because he wanted this castle, originally was brick, wanted it to, here, yeah, brick, wanted it to, or stone, he wanted it to look more medieval. So when he bought it over, he had the architects cover it with some sort of concrete or plaster to make it look medieval because he was obsessed with that time period. So, but yeah, this is the sun room, the black sun, the symbol of the black sun. And I was made to stand in the center while this demonic satanic ceremony went on around me. And just below my feet in another room is this thing with a flame going underneath me. So really creepy place. Um, so I guess I'll get off of there, stop share. And that's it for the journal entries. You'll hear me and John talk about them. I hope it's not redundant. I guess send me an email if you think it is, where I read the journal and then the session comes on. I read the journal again. I guess the first round is my thoughts and opinions on it, and the second round is how John helps me tease things out of there and jog memories and things like that. So I just thought you'd see the difference just between writing a journal and having your own understandings and then presenting it, reading it in a session with a counselor who can see it from a different point of view, and particularly from a counselor who works with lots of SRA survivors, and he knows the commonalities between us. And a lot of us have the same locations, same techniques, same things going on. So he can kind of, have you ever this or that, or did maybe this or that? And it's not that he's suggesting that that happened. He's just saying, look, I got another client here. You know, maybe this happened for you. So anyhow, I'll let y'all go for now. You have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.